full HD came out and I could not believe the quality of the image that was coming out of some of these cameras. It absolutely freaking blew my mind. And now I've experienced it all over again with the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema camera 6K. So the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema camera, look, I'm gonna call it the Pocket 6K for now because that name is absolutely ridiculous. So the Pocket 6K has to have one of the best images I have ever seen in relation to the price that you pay for the body itself. There really is nothing else like it in this price. And with the images that come out of this, I would be expecting to pay, $8, $9, $10,000 for a camera like this, which is why it makes it so much more impressive. So straight up, the Pocket 6K has a Super 35mm sensor and you can shoot up to 6K at 50 frames a second. 6K, 50 frames a second. What the? Famously known for pushing the boundaries, BlackMagic has again blown everyone away with this camera, which now has dual native ISOs of 400 and 3200. Plus the fact that it now has the Canon EF mount inbuilt means you get access to the full Canon lineup without having to get any more adapters. Now this being the first time that I've ever used a BlackMagic product, it took a little bit of time to get used to the different languages and settings that are used in the actual menu system itself, but I did pick it up very quickly and then I felt right at home. Now the body itself is very well designed. It's made of a carbon fiber polycarbonate composite, which actually makes it quite light to hold until you rig it out and then it starts getting a little bit heavier. The grip on this is super deep, which is amazing, and it's actually very comfortable to hold even after a long period of time. And overall, it is an absolutely amazing camera to use. However, there are quite a few things that we need to talk about with this. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that most cameras that you buy nowadays, you can basically pull them out of the box and start shooting straight away. You can definitely do this with this camera, but there are a few accessories that I would 100% recommend getting and adding that onto your price when you're thinking about getting this camera. So the first one is batteries. So if you're gonna get one of these cameras, you need a lot of batteries. When using this, I average probably 20 to 30 minutes out of each battery, which, if you ask me, is absolutely horrendous. And it really makes it hard to just go out and have some fun and just shoot some stuff because you're always just thinking about when the battery's gonna die and when you need to swap it out. So the first thing to add to your cart when you're buying this camera is definitely a lot more of these batteries. I'd probably recommend absolute minimum 4, or get some sort of battery grip or V-mount battery or just something to power the unit itself. Now the next thing is how you're gonna mount stuff to the cameras. Now you got two options here. So you can basically go one of these little cold shoe mounts, which kind of turns into like a DSLR, or if you know you're gonna have to mount a whole bunch of stuff to it, then I would definitely recommend getting some sort of cage, which will allow you to kind of mount stuff to wherever, and you can chuck a lot of these cold shoes everywhere over the camera and you can kind of full rig it out. And the last thing that I again 100% recommend getting if you're gonna get this camera is some sort of external monitor, because look, as much as I love this 5-inch touchscreen, beautiful display, and I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. It's so sharp, it's so crisp, the resolution is absolutely amazing. As soon as you step outside with this glossy screen in direct sunlight, you literally can't see anything. Like, it is so dim and there's so many reflections, it is absolutely impossible to look at. Plus the fact that it's fixed in place means that the only way you can really shoot comfortably is when it's right out in front of you. You can't go high, you can't go low, which is why I think you 100% need an external monitor, so it'll allow you to get low and high and get into all these different shooting positions. Now recently I went out to Nangara Pines to test out the Pocket 6K with Tim, and the reason I went there is because I know there's lots of details, lots of leaves, lots of sticks, and I really want to test out, if you're shooting wide in this camera and you punch in, how much detail is there really, and just to see kind of what you could get out of this camera. So as you can see from those shots, there is absolutely crazy amounts of detail. Even when you're shooting at 12:1 compression, like the 6K that comes out of it is absolutely mind-boggling. Now let's go through the pros and cons of the Pocket 6K, because I mean, there is a lot to get through. For the pros, we absolutely can't step over the fact that the 6K that comes out of this is absolutely insane. You can literally shoot super wide in this, which is what I was doing for a lot of the time, and just punch into almost like macro shots, and it's still crazy detail. My brain literally can't comprehend how does this, I don't even understand. 50 frames a second at 6K at this price point? What? Stepping down to resolution, you can shoot at 120 frames a second at 2.8K. Honestly, I was a little bit disappointed in this. I kind of assumed that if you could shoot 50 frames a second at 6K, you'd be able to shoot 120 frames a second, or at least 100 frames a second at 4K. But what isn't impressive about that is the crop on this when you're shooting in that format, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. Now this one for me, again, absolutely blew my mind, and that is the fact that you can shoot 6K, 25 frames a second in Blackmagic RAW on just standard SD cards. Like, you don't need anything fancy to shoot this format. I mostly just use SanDisk Extreme Pro SD cards, which are absolutely cheap as chips. And I was able to shoot at 6K, 25 frames a second in Blackmagic RAW, although I did have to turn the compression down to 12:1. The image is still absolutely amazing, and the fact they've put this in here means that they've allowed it to be super accessible to literally anyone now. So now a bit more on the compression features, because I wish every single camera had this. The main reason I rarely shoot in RAW my C200 is that file sizes are humongous and they're so hard to work with. It just adds so much extra time onto projects that it's easier to not shoot in it. But with this compression feature, it still means that you can shoot in full 6K, but with slightly reduced quality, which is absolutely amazing. The built-in EF mount was an absolute no-brainer on this one. In-camera false colors is something new to me, but it is a very handy tool to nail exposure with the touch of a button. Once you understand how to read the color chart, it makes nailing exposure easy as pie. Off-speed frame rate is another feature that I wish every single camera would have. This allows you to set the final frame rate and the recording frame rate, but with so much more flexibility. For instance, we shot this at 120 frames a second and set the final frame rate to 25 frames a second. This is something that you would normally have to do once you are on the computer, but with this, it actually processes it in the camera so you can instantly see what it's gonna look like. Pretty neat if you ask me. The next one is in-camera LUTs. Most cameras have a way of showing you a non-log profile while actually shooting in log. Being able to add on a LUT makes it so much easier to shoot in log because you can just see what the final image is gonna look like. It helps so much with exposure and making sure you don't clip highlights. And finally, I have to give it to Blackmagic for this one. After shooting on Canon forever, the skin tones and in-camera colors are pretty dang good. When I jumped into the editing suite, I actually just applied my C200 preset to the footage and it pretty much matched up straight away. Alright guys, so that is the pros for the Pocket 6K, but now we have to talk about the cons. And unfortunately, there are quite a few of these. The vent on the bottom of the camera roll being an absolutely amazing idea to get rid of the extra heat produced by the sensor when you're shooting in 6K. Unfortunately, absolutely roasts your hands when you're holding the camera like this. And there was often times where I was shooting and I had to actually keep taking my hand away because it was just getting so hot. The fact that it doesn't have an articulating screen or at bare minimum a tilting screen makes it super hard to shoot anything high and low, and it really limits you to basically being straight ahead of you unless you want to get super duper uncomfortable. And again, the absolutely beautiful high resolution 5-inch touchscreen is amazing, but it is just so hard to see in sunlight, and that gloss finish absolutely kills it. Battery life again is absolutely horrendous. I mean, 20 to 30 minutes on a battery is just not usable. And again, like I said, if you are looking at getting this, be sure to add batteries onto the price of the camera itself, because you cannot get away with only one. Again, absolute minimum I would recommend is probably 4. But look at getting the battery grip, look at getting some sort of V-mount external battery to power this, because you are absolutely gonna need it. And the other thing to note is that if you aren't using genuine Canon batteries, you don't actually get a percentage readout of the battery that's in the camera. One of the batteries I was using was not a genuine Canon, and it was so hard to figure out when the battery was about to die, and there were several times when we were shooting and it just completely died in the middle of a shot. Although it is a very nice camera to hold, it is a real weird size and it makes it quite difficult to put on things like a gimbal. That is why in this review there is absolutely no gimbal shots, because I didn't have the adapters to put this on my Ronin S. However, if you are looking at using this on a gimbal, companies like SmallRig do an offset plate which will allow you to put it on those gimbals. Now the crop factor on this is definitely a con, but there's also some pros about it as well, and I was a little bit confused whether to put it in the pros or the cons section, so let's go through that now. So when shooting at full 6K, you'll utilize the full Super 35mm sensor and you'll get roughly a 1.6 times crop. However, if you decide to drop the resolution down to 2.8K in B-RAW, you're gonna get an absolute whopping 3.4 times crop. And that is exactly why I was using this Laowa 12mm when I was shooting on the Pocket 6K. Oh God, this one absolutely crushed my soul soul when I found out about it, and that is the fact that this has no autofocus. And working with Canon cameras with the dual pixel autofocus system, having to jump back to manual focus is probably the reason why some of the shots in this video are out of focus. So I really apologize for that. A few other things to mention, which I thought was a bit weird, is that when you're shooting in B-roll, you either get 6K, 5.7K, or 2.8K, and there's no 4K or 1080p. And then when you jump over into ProRes, there's no 6K, there's no 5.7K, you've only got 4K or 1080p, which is kind of a bit weird. And lastly, if you're gonna throw a mic on this bad boy, there's definitely something that you need to be aware of. When I was shooting with this, I had to put my mic onto plus 20 decibels and absolutely max out the gain on the camera itself, and it still was only peaking at about -30, which is super duper quiet. But guys, even though the cons list on this camera is fairly sizable, being able to shoot at 6K while still keeping this camera at a reasonable price is something that you have to give Blackmagic credit for. And for me personally, if it had a few changes like better battery life, an articulating screen, and autofocus, this camera would literally decimate all, no questions asked. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. I'll leave links below if you want to find out more about it or where to buy it. And as always, stay creative, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya.